All right. Thanks everyone for attending. My name is Vijay. The today's session is going to be for DevOps for Power BI and how do you integrate CI/CD process into the Power BI workflow and development. So let's get started. So just a brief about myself. So my name is Vijay Hemantha. I'm a CEO founder of TrueWiz. So I have over 20 years of experience in data and analytics. So TrueWiz as a company, we are a Microsoft partner and a leading provider in data and analytics in USA. So we're based in New Jersey. So we offer various analytics products to different business areas. And some of it to call out is like our Power Tools, which supercharges Power BI developers. So we do currently two offerings. Is the PowerViz, which is a custom visuals for Power BI. Another is PowerOps, which is like a full productivity DevOps solution for Power BI as well. So that's the brief about myself, and you can follow me on LinkedIn, or you can find me on the YouTube as well. So that's the background about myself. So let's move on. So before we get started, let's learn some of the terminology. So the key terms that we definitely use in this process is the DevOps, CI/CD, and source control. So what is DevOps? DevOps is like a set of best practices that you use it in the your software development lifecycle, that to shorten the development lifecycle and provide the continuous delivery with the quality. So that is what the DevOps is meant for. Whereas in CI/CD, you have two parts to it. Like CI is meant for continuous integration, and CD is for the continuous development. So continuous integration is like frequent merging of small changes into the branch. So, and whereas continuous development is like you can deploy the software in a shorter cycles with the high speed of frequency. So, whereas source control is the actually a practice of tracking or managing the changes in the code. There are different SCM systems like GitHub or Azure DevOps, and this helps us to maintain the code, all the development history, and resolve the conflicts and manage the cycles and fasten your development. So this is the key different technology that you should know. Um, let's get started. Go to the next slide. So why do we need this DevOps or source control? Right. Why do we need source control? Because nobody is perfect. So the way you might be already been building the Power BI reports or models, you might think that everything is going well, but unfortunately nobody is perfect. So there could be something that you might be missing, or there is some errors that could happen. So it's always good to have the tracking of the changes. So that is where the source control helps us. And the source control also helps us with the team development as well. So you can just not produce it as an individual. You're producing the code as a team, and you can share and collaborate among the team. And it also helps us to do the change tracking to see the differences between the code versions that you produce over the time. So let's say if you publish something into the production, and if it doesn't go well, so you can see what's been changed between the last versions to the production. And it also provides a high granularity control or change control. That means that you can choose what you want to push it to the next environment. And you can also do the peer review as well. If you're a manager or a lead or in your team, so you can review the other developers' code, and they can read your code as well, review your code and sign off. And it also gives us like a lot of automation opportunities, like you can automate the deployments, you can automate the test cases before you deploy it. There is a lot of opportunities for automation through source control. That is why I think it's very important to adopt source control, including in Power BI and Fabric development as well. So then comes the why DevOps. So why DevOps means like, so it gives us opportunities in the faster solutions. You can produce it in the faster way. You can improve the performance of the overall development. You can include the efficiency, and you will be producing you can produce the continuous integration, whereas in like you can produce the code in short cycles and get it deployed. You can also improve the customer experience. If you have a failures, you can have a rollbacks. You can reduce the failures because it's more. You can add a lot of test cases around it. You'll also get a faster ROI, so you're going to reduce the off cycle, increasing the testing and improving the customer. So it saves a lot. It saves the cost. Improves the efficiency and improves the collaboration, and actually it improves the trust in the overall process from the customer's point of view. So that's why we need both source control and DevOps. So let's move on. And so what are the DevOps maturity model? How do I get started and how do I optimize the overall process? So first, this is the typical pyramid, how you go about it. Like first you start with like an ad hoc where you have the team start implementing the tools that you already have for like a VS Code, or you can use the different frameworks. So get the process initiated in your team, then do the proof of concept, like have identify some of the pilot members for your team and then start trying them, and also start with the tools and plan the DevOps implementation. Once you have POCs working fine, then start adopting for the org wide or your team wide, and see like run the DevOps sessions internally and have everybody onboarded and everybody's collaborating and governed. And the fourth steps are where you do like more sustainable side. So where you also just not doing the DevOps side, now you're doing the DevOps governance around it. Like you do the tracking and reporting as well. And the last step is more an optimized DevOps. So this is the final stage, like where you can achieve. So you're gonna be integrating the continuous feedback as well. So along with the process, you are using the right mix of the tools to optimize the outcome. And also you continuously review and establish like a COE, a Center of Excellence for DevOps practices. So this is the typical pillar for the maturity model. Let's move on to the next one. And so how do you implement this in Power BI? So in Power BI, you have two choices. Like either you can use GitHub or Azure DevOps. Fortunately, both are owned by Microsoft. But if you given a choice, I would ask you to choose DevOps because of the reason that it is integrated with workspaces in Fabric. But the Microsoft also has a plan to integrate this in the GitHub in the future. But anytime they make changes, the first thing is gonna be adopting is in the DevOps side. So if you have a choice, the DevOps is more straightforward in that way. Um, all right. So the how do you implement in Power BI is like first you choose your version control system. So get it registered or integrated first, and then train your team, and then have your team doing the commits, devs, or pull request around the source control, peer review the process, and then integrate with the workspaces. With when you integrate with the workspaces, you need the either a premium per user or premium capacity. Today, if you are in a pro version of your workspaces, then you might not be able to integrate directly with the workspaces, but you still be able to do the source control as needed. The integration or syncing with the workspaces is not exist today. You may need to use some APIs around it, but for premium, it is there is a workflow that is already defined that you can do it end to end. All right. And so, what are the steps that we can do on a like these are the kind of fundamental steps how someone gets started with Azure DevOps and using it in a Power BI and a PBIP. The first step that you're gonna do is that so you need to create an Azure DevOps account. So if you don't have it already for your team, so create an Azure DevOps account, and then you start with creating a repo. Don't worry, I'm gonna give a demo of these steps, but I'm just going over on the high level, what is involved. So first you create a repo as in the source control. That is typically a name of Fabric workspace because you're gonna connect this repo at the end in the Fabric side. So in the workspace you're gonna integrate with that. So you try to have the same naming convention in both places, so there won't be any confusion that way. And then it like you install VS Code, and you're gonna clone the repo that you already created in the source control. And once you cloned it, and once you see that in the VS Code, so the next step is like you open the Power BI report and save it as PBIP in your whatever the repo that you created locally. So you can save it in there. Then you're gonna commit your changes, and then sync it with the server. Like you're gonna commit the changes and see the diff, and then come sync it with the server. And then you're gonna raise a pull request and have it peer reviewed by your team members, and then you go about like integrating with Git and also with the workspaces. The Git integration with workspace, again, it's a premium feature that is out there, and then you're gonna sync it with the workspace at the end. So these are the typical steps that are involved from end to end, like right from the creating the Azure DevOps account till the workspace integration with Power BI. So now it's time for demo. So I'll just show you how do you get started with Azure DevOps, and then we'll go about that. All right. So if you already have an account, so it's just dev.azure.com. So if you go into there, so you already registered in this case, but if you want to complete the registration process, you can create a project. So there are several projects that you can create. For example, if you choose one of the project, right? So the first step that you're going to do is that you're going to create a repo. So these are the repos on the left that you see. So you click on the repos, and I already have some existing repos, but you can create a new repo. So clicking on this drop down and clicking on the new repository. So once you click on it, so start giving a name. In my case, I'm just giving sales and marketing. I'll just put um, today's date so for me to easily identify the things.
Vijay, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Is it possible to zoom in a little bit?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, cool. So you're going to create a repository and choose the Git and give a repository name. So usually this name is same as Fabric workspace name. So for example, if you're working in sales and marketing team, so you're going to be having this repo name. So you create the same repo name. I'm just adding this suffix so it's easy to identify the repo for me. So just click on create. So that creates a blank repository. It doesn't have any files as you see, it only has the README file which comes along with that. So it's always important to, whenever you create a repo, it's always important to see what branch you are at. Like you're on the main branch today, which is the default branch that gets created. And it also important to see the history of it, like what's happening in the history. So I just created one blank repo here with the main branch, and I can do the same with like I can create a new branch with dev from the main branch as well. So let's say I want to create a dev branch. It's always important to have more branches. Like there is a branching strategy that is going to come up next, but so it's always important to differentiate your development process from the production. So treat always the main branch or the default branch as your production. Then you create like your dev, UAT, and what are the other branches that you'd like to have. In this scenario, I'm just creating a dev branch. So I click on create dev branch based out of like a main branch, and I click on create. So that's create the dev branch. But ideally, it is also an empty because it's inherited from the main branch in here. So once you create this repo on the Azure DevOps side, right? So the next step that you're going to do is that you just need to clone it into your VS Code. Before you start cloning it, you need to install the VS Code if you don't have it already in your system. So install the VS Code and set up all the VS Code settings, and then you go ahead and clone it. In my case, I already have the VS Code, so I'm just cloning it directly. So just say clone in VS Code. Open the Visual Studio. So let me choose a folder where I would like to have this. Create a folder here. Okay, I'm just gonna choose this repos and I'll put this in the repository folder itself. So it is cloning locally, and as you see, once it's cloned, you got the same README file and the same repo locally, right? So this is where you already have it a local repo right now. So you clone it from the server. Now, next step is like if you're using Power BI, for example, this is my Power BI report, right? So it's always recommended to use the PBIP format. The Power BI is introduced like three different formats like PBIX, PBIT, and PBIP. Most of you might know the difference between them. So, but PBIX is like comes with the data, and PBIT is a skeleton file, but it is not source control friendly. And whereas PBIP is the newly introduced format from Microsoft, which is more source control friendly. So always choose the PBIP whenever you're putting into the source control. You never want to put PBIX into the source control because it has the data, and you cannot really make a diff because it's going to be in a binary format. Whereas PBIP is much more granular, whereas a skeleton files, it has it and more decentralized and segregated. So it's easy to do a diffs and other things. So it's the chosen format should be the PBIP here. So let's go back to the folder that we have placed it. So under repo, this is the folder, and just place it in this, save this thing in the PBIP here. Right, now let's go back to the folder. Let's see. So as you see, uh, there are the folders that has been already been created here. So I'll just zooming in. So you can see that there is a dot report folder and dot dataset folder. And let me put it in a detail so you can clearly see it. So the dot report folder, dot dataset folder, and there is a PBI file as well. So if you go to the dot report, you're gonna see a skeleton of the files where you gonna see that the definition.pbir and the report.json. This is the main file that is there in the report side. Whereas if you go to the data set, you're gonna see that the model.bim file, which is the main file in the dataset side. So how these files are connected internally is that the first one to start with is this is PBIP file. This is a PBIP file, and this has a link in the report side. Definition.pbir has a link to the one. It has a link to the, for example, if I try to edit this, you can see what it has. So it has a path to the data set. Just going one step above and taking the path to the data set. So if you, that's how it connects to the data set side. And then you can see what the model.bim file that's been using. This is just internals of PBIP. But let's see, if you come back to our source control, like VS Code, as you see that I saved it, let me zoom in a bit here. As you see here, you got the report and data set, whatever we saved it, it's all the files here. So you can also see, you need to go to this tab, so which is the source control tab, which will automatically shows up like what are the changes, right? So because these files wasn't existing, if I go back to my Azure DevOps, and here, as you see, when I refresh, there are no files yet, but we saved those files local repo. Now the next step that we need to do is that we need to, all these files, it wasn't existing in the source, but now we are placing it, we're adding all these files. Like, so the first step that we need to do is that we need to stage the changes. So you need to click on this plus icon, staging all the changes. So now that's moved to stage area from the changes. So now you see that these are all in the staged area. So the next step is like you're gonna add a commit message to commit these changes. Let's say I'm saying that initial commit. And just click on commit. So now you have commit. So the commit is still in local, right? So now you wanna push the changes, like to push the changes to the server. you need to sync the changes. To sync the changes, like let's give a message. So when you click on sync changes, so now that's get transmitted into the server side. So let's go back. This is completed. So you were gonna see on the, so as you see in the main branch, we have pushed it now. As you can see that there are files that are got added in here. The same, so you see that just got added just now. So you will see the same set of files here as well, right? All the history and everything. So now let's take the next scenario. So this is how you start with it. You initiate a repo, just to give a recap. So first you initiate a repo, you start with a blank repo, then you clone it in the VS Code. Then you're gonna put your Power BI file back into the folder, and where then you're gonna commit and sync it into the service. So then it's gonna show up in the server side. Now, next step is would be, now that it's in the server, now let's say if you're making changes to the Power BI report, right? For example, I want to change this particular background color for this page. So it is currently gray, and I want to change it to, let's say, blue, right? Just for identification. I'm just making few changes. So one is the color, I made a change. Now let's do another model level change as well. So I'm just going to some. So let's say I have it like some measure, I'm changing it. So I'm changing by the number, by instead of 2, I'm placing it as 4. I click on OK, and ignore this, and let's save this file back into the same folder. So same folder, so I'm gonna save this back. All right, so as soon as you saved it, right, so the VS Code is gonna identify the changes automatically. So you're gonna see that what are the changes. For example, in the model.vim file, I've changed the expression of a measure from the 2 to 4. And whereas in report, I have changed the color, since it is, so Microsoft's still working on there is a color ID 0 here and there's color ID 2 here, which changes from the gray color. Like I'm using a theme here, so it chooses by color ID. So the 0 here is the gray, and the 2 is the blue version. So, and moreover, like Microsoft is working on like PBIP is further, they're trying to come up with a new format for report also, which makes it even more easier to read. Right now, it is not fully readable, but still good. It does a good job for source control. So you can see the file differences clearly. But as you see here, I made a couple of changes. I can see the changes that what I've done. So then I can stage the changes as the next step. So I'm staging these changes. Now I can do a push as well on the same. So let's try it. So you can add your any request numbers that you have a Jira numbers or anything. So in the commit messages, and you're gonna put a commit on top of the state changes. Like once you make the commit, then you're gonna sync the changes back into the server. So as you see in the server, so if you see the history, so we only had the initial commit that we have done earlier. Now after we sync the changes, you're gonna see that the new changes that we have made is also gonna show up. So if I refresh now, you're gonna see the next one, the changes according to the user request. So that also the new change is gonna show up as well. So you can even, what's even better is like you can even click on this particular commit in the history, and you can see in that what is being changed between the prior version and the latest version. For example, in this one, so we have changed you can see the whole thing, or you can even see that how many lines were changed and etc. The same goes with the report as well. So you can see all of this compared to the previous commit. And I'm coming back to the file system. So these are all the files that are existing, right? So now let's get this, see the next step of like, how do you get this integrated with Power BI? So let's go to Power BI. Just opening up the Power BI page. Go to app.powerbi.com. So you need to have a workspace first. This is only needed or can be done only if you have a premium capacity. Either it's a premium per user or it is just a right premium itself, right? So let's say I'm doing the same thing, sales and marketing. I'm giving the same workspace name. And the first thing you need to make sure it is not pro. It only works in a premium per user or if you're already in a premium capacity. So I create this workspace right now, which is called sales and marketing. And the next step that you need to do is that you need to go to this workspace settings and go to the Git integration. You need to choose the which project you are at, which repo you are at. For example, I'm at 05, and this is the repo that we created, which matches with the same name here, what I created here. So you're gonna choose the same project name and the repo name and all details, and then you're gonna choose the branch, what branch you wanna add it. So right now this is the main branch, and I wanna connect and sync. So then what happens is like with the Microsoft features, it will try to sync from our works, like from our Azure DevOps repo, and it'll try to fetch the files and back into the workspace in the Fabric side. But one thing to note is that we need to make sure it is PBIP format. It's only support the PBIP. If you have placed a PBIX or PBIT, this won't be able to sync. So right now, as you see, these are synced, and you can also see this message on the top. It says source control. You can click on it. If it will show you if you need to do any changes or updates, right? There are the key difference here. The changes is something that you are having something that you have done it like locally. I mean, like for example, this fabric space. I can open this link report as well right from here. So you can see this is the report that we've been using it, and since it's not reloaded, that's why you're seeing the blank values. It doesn't have a data because we are using the skeleton files. But if you refresh, you're gonna see the value, the data values in here. But you see this is a gray background and the default bookmarks and other things that we see all of these here. So the next step is like, so if you make a changes here in this file, it is, you can do a two-way sync as well. So if you make a changes here, it is gonna go back to the workspace as well. So if you make a change, so you can push it back. This is gonna show up here where you need to make changes. Or if you have a new changes in the workspace that we have done, so that's gonna show up here for updates as well. So it's pretty good that way to see the changes. We're gonna see that use case also now. Let's go back in here and let's make a change on these ones. So let's go to, let's create a, like, let's duplicate this page and let's give a new name. It's calling it as bookmarks 2. You can change the color to something that is changing it to yellow. So I'll just save this thing. If you go back to this, so it immediately identify that there is that's been changed. See the source files here, or go to this one so you can see, and you can state the changes. So you can see the state changes that are staged here. And you can also make a commit message also. There is a new page for bookmarks, and I do a commit and sync the changes. All right, now let's go and see history. So you will see that whatever the comment I did are showing up here. So if you go to the workspace, so you see that it immediately identifies that there is a change that was happened from last time it was there. So you can click on this and you can see what are the new updates it got. So it's modified. It at this point, Fabric doesn't show you what exactly has changed, but that change you can see it right here. So you can click on this one and you can see what's been changed. We added a completely new page here. That's where you see it's shown up all these changes in here. But the change, the difference, the diff, you can see it right here, right? So all we need to do is just clicking on update all. So now what it has is like it's gonna pull up the changes, that's the new comments that has been there, and from there, and it is trying to sync it here. Now that sync has been completed, as you see. So you can open the report. So as you see now, it is in yellow that we have the newly added. So this is the typical workflow with the development. So how you get started with it? Like for example, if I'm another developer who's working on the same project, so I can take the same repo, I can clone the same repo from here, and I can check this, like I can just clone that in my local, I can make changes, and I can create a pull request accordingly and then get it merged. So there is a right workflow of the Power BI development. This gives the collaboration, so and peer review also. So you can track the changes, you can see the history of the changes that's been happening over the time and etc. So it'll help you in a way that to make it more efficient, the whole process. Let's see the other one where we have like, and as you see here, we have the main branch here. The best part is that you can also tag this main branch. We have created one repo in Power BI, right? So one workspace in Power BI. But if you can create a dev workspace also into this, let's call it like a dev workspace in sales and marketing. I'm not going to repeat myself on doing this same thing, but I'll just tell you on a high level. So you can create this, the sales and marketing dev and another workspace, and then in workspace settings, instead of choosing and in the Git integration, instead of choosing the main branch, you're going to choose it to the dev branch there. So that's the only change. So once you make it change into dev, it's going to sync the dev branch. So then you have two choices. Once you have dev branch and when you have prod branch, either you can use the pull request from in here from the workspaces. There is a pull request that you can create from like for example from main branch to like the whatever branch that you want to create a pull request, you can create a pull request, um, saying that for saying yes report, and you can add your own reviewers as well. So I'm just adding someone from my team. So I'll just click on create. So that creates, and you can see the changes that's been going on in here. So all the files that are going changed and etc. So as part of the pull request, and the other person whom I added as a reviewer in here, so he can go and approve my pull request or reject my pull request. So once it's approved and he completes the merging part, so then it goes back, right? Then it goes back and gets merged with the dev version as well. So for example, I'm completing this full merge here. You can set all the policies, and then when it's completed, you can see that this is the status has completed here. So then you can go back to the files and you can see in the dev version. Now the dev also has all these files, what the main branch has it. Now you can go ahead and create the another workspace, dev workspace, and you're gonna set it like with the dev branch as well. So this way you can create the pull request for making sure that you are between the branches, you are merging the files, merging the changes. So that is one way to migrate the changes from your dev to production. And Another way is that like you can have it individually synced with the workspaces, and you can create a deployment pipelines in Fabric. So there is something called deployment pipeline. So you can also use the deployment pipelines to you can create a new pipeline that goes from the, let's say, it's giving the same name here. So, and you can add the stages that you have. You click on create, and you can choose the workspace that is out there. For my example here, I'm choosing the all the sales and workspace from one workspace to another workspace. You can add it. So that's where you can push the changes from dev to prod as well. There are two ways to do it. So either you use the dev deployment pipelines to push your changes, or you can use just the pull request to merge the changes and have it directly integrated with the workspaces. So this is the typical workflow that you can use it. How do you get started with Azure DevOps and Power BI, and how do you start with the report development to make it easier? So let's go back to the my PowerPoint slides. I'll just show you the on the flow. So this is one approach. This is option one, which we were talking about. So when you start with local PBIP, you make the commits and push it, and you have a branches, and then each branch can be directly added or synced with the respective workspaces. And here is something that you can have any number of branching strategies. You can have a dev, main, or hotfix, or anything. That all this comes to different branches. But ideally, like what are the branches you have? You can commit to that. Either you have a prod workspace, you have a dev workspace, or UAT workspace. You can directly sync it. This is an option one. But for the advanced users, I would say if someone you are newly getting started with DevOps, I would say suggest to start with this to get yourself as a comfort level. And but there is another option, and the option two. If you are more advanced in the DevOps side and you wanna run a lot of rules and test cases while you're deploying it rather than just directly syncing it, so this option would be a best choice. So where the you gonna do the PBIP, saving the folder, you're gonna do the GitHub repo commits, and you're gonna push into the like in the sync the changes into the service in the Azure DevOps. You create the branches accordingly, but this is where the process that's gonna change is like you're not manually doing the sync, so you're gonna create like a build pipeline and release pipelines in the scenario where you can create a release pipeline to deploy from branch from your repos into the Fabric workspace. With that, what happens is like, so you're gonna set all the rules that you wanna set it as, like you can create a report side of rules or data set rules. For example, if you have any best practices that you wanna ensure before any deployment happens, or you wanna run any data quality test before any deployment happens. So you this workflow will give you all that flexibility to do it on your own. But as in the first one, first option where you have it, like you have to run all the test cases offline, but you're going to directly sync it. But the second part is like you can automatically configure all this pipeline, and you can set up all the rules and you can customize it as you need it. But to create these pipelines, you would need an via YAML scripts. You need to have like create your own YAML scripts to do that. So that's the difference. And here, this needs little more on the coding front where you need to write your own pipeline scripts to do it. But still, like I would say, start with option one and then slowly get into the option two. And while you mature more on the DevOps model. So what other options that we have? So here, this is so far we have seen the integration with the how do you do an Azure DevOps with Power BI and how do you integrate with the workspace and Fabric. But like there are other external tools also. So we have a couple of external tools today that can do this. One is PowerOps. PowerOps is an end-to-end CI/CD platform for Power BI where you can version control, and on top of just offering the version control and DevOps, it also gives you the analyzing part where you can see the a little bit of the information of metadata dependencies, and it also provides some unique interface for comparing it also to make it easier, and it also automates the best practices rules too. and you can create the pull request, version history, and everything right from here. From it gives you more UI based solution, and somebody is more interested, so they can click on this link and they can check it out, and they can try it for free. So they can see that. And the other tool also in this list is PBI tools. So the PBI tools is built by Matthias Therbach. He's also a pretty good contributor in the Power BI and DevOps space. So he created a free utility. It's more like a command line utility tool that you can use it, and where you can do source control. And earlier, before the PBIP format existing, so this was one of the go-to tool for people to use some like to try to make sense of their Power BI reports. Where's the governance? But still, it's more like the command line front where you still need to write the code for yourself and how to write all the commands to do that. And with the PBIP, that addresses this issue. But there's a lot of good things this tool also offers. You can go and check it out. And this is pbi.tools. Yeah, that's mostly the external tools that covers. But I'll just show you quickly on one of these external tools how that does the version controlling. So for PowerOps, so I'm just showing you the experience in here. So you can just try it for free. If you click on the PowerOps SaaS, you can just click on sign in. So that automatically uses, in this my case, it's already using my Azure DevOps. It locks me in. The first step is like you create a repo right from here as well. So here you can, I'm just writing the same thing. So sales, for example, sales report 05, 04, 2024. And you can choose to add a file from here. You can choose a PBIP. Let's choose some PBIP here. So it makes it even more easier on the UI front. And whereas in VS Code, you need to write like all the command line scripts and etc. But this makes it more UI based. But like if but this tool is not for free. This tool offers a free version, like up to 5 reports. But if somebody has more than 5 reports, I think there is a paid model to it. But whereas in VS Code, you can continue to use VS Code for free. It offers if your use case is just purely version control, I think probably you can go ahead and with the using the VS Code. So yeah, once it completes loading, and it also, yeah, now that it's created as a repo as you see it here, so it added this workspace, and it also does the same thing in the, let's go back to this repos that I had it. So here I just added something called with today's date 04 sales report. So it created from the PowerOps side, right? It just added whatever I added from here. What additional things it gives is like it also gives us all the benefits of all the metadata that you have it in report. And it also shows up like a lot of dependencies that you have it in your model. And you can also create the branches right from here. Very straightforward. So you can click on create a branch and click on dev and create a branch here. And that creates a dev branch. And it's very straightforward to do the comparison as well. You can choose between like the main branch, what do you want to compare, since both are the same file. I haven't made any changes here, but if you have any changes, that's going to show up. For example, if I choose some model here file, it shows up what are the
Vijay, a
changes.
question from the audience.
Yeah.
Thomas asks, what data is stored at the PowerOps side?
It doesn't store any data. It only stores it only has the skeleton files. Like PBIP has only metadata, but that metadata also gets stored within your version control system. It ideally doesn't store any of the data. So it's just a wrapper on top of your Azure DevOps and Power BI, but it itself doesn't have store or transmit any data. All right. Moving on. So it also has some features like where you can do, you can even see that visually also what's been changed, and you can also see that the changes in the what's being changed in the column level as well is being used or not, and you can also see the best practices too. It also runs again as the Power BI best practices and like Microsoft enforced standard best practices, so you can see what rules has been failed and other things. So what this tool offers over the native VS Code integration is like just not version controlling, but it also offers all this making it automating the best practices and all this different other thing, make it more user friendly and also offers additional capabilities like you can run all the test cases, you can create your own rules as well, and all of this story, and it also provides the version control. It's more tailored uh, for the Power BI specific. So this is one of the external tool that is available. Uh, Another one that, as I mentioned in my PowerPoint earlier, so where you have this PBI dot tools. So where this is a command line interface, so where you can see the all the docs where you have the tool actions that you can. So you can also do the same thing where you can init a repo or gate or generate Vim files or deploy it, compile it, and all extract all these things. So this is another version, but you need to use it in the command line interface for this one. Whereas PowerHouse provides more GUI based. So that's the difference between the two tools. But I think one thing that everybody need to adopt. So either I think everybody agree on the what's the benefits that comes with the source control. Either you use external tools or not. But first, I think some everybody need to start using the PBIP format. It's in preview right now, but I think soon it will be in GA. But get started with PBIP and provide the feedback to Microsoft team also if you see any issues. But PBIP is already working well for a lot of people. So start using PBIP and store it in the version control so you don't miss out the changes and you can clearly see what's changed, what's been the differences. And you can conduct a lot of tests around it, like best practices, also the data quality test. You can automate a lot of stuff, and that makes it more and efficient for your Power BI workflows. So yeah, with that, I think that's all I had for today in the session. I'll open up for questions if anybody has anything.